The two final modeling factors are ambient light and ambient occlusion. You can think of ambient light as the general brightening effect that the sun or another powerful light source has in a scene. For example, in an interior, the ambient light is natural light coming in through the windows and reflecting off of the walls, the ceiling, and the floor in the room. It's important to distinguish ambient light from direct light, such as the spots of light you can see on the wall and on the floor. This is light that comes directly from the light source, travels through space, and impacts the surface. It is much more powerful than ambient light. Ambient light is indirect light. It often has a general direction, but it is softly scattering throughout the scene. Ambient light has two main effects, and they both influence the shadows. Ambient light softens and lightens shadows. Here's a painting by Rembrandt. We can clearly see direct light hitting the cheek here. Ambient light is visible in the form-shadow area. The shadows here are very dark because there is very little ambient light in this room. Let's estimate the intensity of ambient light on a scale from 0 to 100. In this scene, the intensity is very low, let's say around 5%. If we increased this intensity to 25%, the image would look something like this. And back to the original. And back to 25. Okay, you see the difference? This is an example of low ambient light. Here's an image by Bouguereau, which has a very high amount of ambient light. The shadow shapes are difficult to see, but they are there. They're just very light and very soft. A common way to control ambient light is to build a shadow box. It prevents ambient light and other light sources from reaching the subject. So here we have a very low amount of ambient light and clean, dark shadows. The exact opposite is a light tent, which is often used in product photography. This is maximizing the ambient light, and there are basically no shadows left except for cavities and where objects are touching the floor. With ambient light comes its opposite effect, ambient occlusion. If you want to create realistic images, this is a very important modeling factor. Occlusion means hiding or blocking. Ambient occlusion is a type of shadow that is created when ambient light is blocked from reaching a surface. Out of all the modeling factors, this might be the most difficult to understand. But we can do it together. On your left, there is a regular 3D render using all the modeling factors. On your right, there's just ambient occlusion. This is the beauty of 3D programs. I can tell the computer to just calculate one modeling factor. In this case, ambient occlusion. As you can see, we have a ball with a little shield in front of it. Watch the image on the right. I'm going to pull this shield back away from the ball. Can you see the occlusion shadow? Can you find it also in the left image? It might look subtle, but that is because we're so used to seeing reality with all the modeling factors in place. But watch this. I'm going to remove the occlusion shadow. Ready? See how wrong that looks? This is what happens when you forget to draw ambient occlusion, or when you don't know about it. But now you know about it, so you just need to remember. Let's bring the occlusion shadow back. So much better. This is a super useful modeling factor. Okay, look at the right image again. Let's pull the shield further away. Did you see how much softer the occlusion shadow got? This is the principle. The closer two surfaces are to each other, the darker and sharper the occlusion shadow gets. The further away two surfaces are from each other, the lighter and softer the occlusion shadow gets. I would like to make you aware of one more thing. Ambient occlusion shadows are only really visible in the country of shadow, or the shadow family, and almost never in the country of light, or the light family. This gives you a shortcut. When drawing ambient occlusion, you only need to look for it in the form shadow and cast shadow. Take a look at the floor in the right image. There's occlusion shadow all around the sphere. It gets darker as the sphere and the floor are getting closer to each other. In the left image, there is no occlusion shadow visible on the left side, where we have direct light hitting the floor. This is because simply direct light is so much more powerful than occlusion shadows. If you look very carefully inside the cast shadow on the floor, you can see ambient occlusion there. Here's another example. It's an egg with form light, form shadow, and cast shadow. And here it is with ambient occlusion. To break it down, there is occlusion in the form shadow and in the cast shadow. And this makes all the difference between something flat and graphic and something much more real. I am so happy to be sharing this with you. Ambient occlusion is one of the things that I would really like you to take with you from this course, because it is everywhere. Once you know to look for it, you'll see it, and you'll put it into your work, and your work will be stronger. It took me a while to really understand the concept of ambient occlusion, but when I did, this idea changed the way I draw. So if this is new and you don't quite understand it yet, be patient with yourself. Maybe listen to this explanation again and do your own research. And now, let's practice.